I am not making a prediction in this video. I am not calling a target. I am describing structure, context, and session behavior. Today, the market is still operating inside a parent range. January 22nd traded inside the January 21st U.S. session box. Both the January 22nd U.S. box and the January 22nd Asia box stayed inside that same parent boundary. When you see nested boxes like this, the base assumption is balance. The market can move, but it is usually rotating, not resolving. Start with what the January 22nd U.S. session did. Price pushed below the session box low, but that break did not hold. It snapped back inside. Then price rotated upward and tried to work toward the upper boundary, but that attempt also failed to hold. A lower side failure and an upper side failure on the same day is a classic range signature. It says the market is testing the rails, not choosing a side. Now connect that to the 1-hour indicators. First, the 20-period moving average. In a trend, the 20 can behave like a guide that price respects in one direction. In a range, the 20 often becomes a rotation line. Price trades above it during the upper half of the box and below it during the lower half, without a clean slope. So the question is not only above or below. The question is slope. If the 20 is flat or only gently changing, that matches balance. If it starts to angle sharply and price can hold on one side of it, that is when structure may start shifting from balance into expansion. Second, the 120-period moving average. This is a slower anchor, and it matters more in a parent range environment. When price holds above the 120, pullbacks often behave like supported rotations. When price is below it, rebounds can be fragile and mean reverting. So the 120 is not a signal, it is a location filter. Third, the relationship between the 20 and the 120. When the 20 is crossing and then holding above the 120 on the lower time frame, it can support stabilization. But inside a parent box, a cross is not a trend by itself. It is a condition that can help a rotation hold, if price also holds above key range levels. Now Bollinger Bands. Bands are a volatility envelope. Expanding bands mean volatility is rising, contracting bands mean volatility is compressing. But the key detail in ranges is whether price can hold outside the bands. Touch and re-entry is containment. Probe and snap back is containment. Today fits that. Boundary tests, then re-entry. So the first conclusion is simple. January 22nd was not a clean breakout day. It was an active balance day, inside the January 21st U.S. session range. That context tells you how to interpret everything that follows. Now look at the Asia session state. You said Asia is holding above the Asia reference candle high. That matters, but we keep it in the right category. Holding above the Asia reference high is stabilization inside the child range. It is not the same thing as breaking the parent range. In nested structure, the parent boundary is the real filter. This is where RSI helps. RSI is not a direction tool by itself. It is a pressure gauge. In balance, RSI often drifts and recycles through the middle zone instead of sustaining extremes. So the question is persistence. Does RSI stay elevated as price presses the upper boundary, or does it fade as price stalls? Does RSI stay depressed as price presses the lower boundary, or does it recover quickly when price re-enters? A quick way to narrate this is pressure plus acceptance is meaningful. Pressure without acceptance is just a test. Now combine all three tools: boxes, moving averages, and bands. If price is inside the parent box, and the 20 moving average is acting flat, and bands are not holding breaks outside, then the environment is still range first. That does not mean nothing happens. It means outcomes are less stable. Break attempts are common. Follow-through is less reliable. The market is negotiating. So what is the clean way to describe the current state? 1. The parent range is January 21st U.S. session. January 22nd remained inside it. 2. January 22nd U.S. session showed a downside probe that failed, then an upside attempt that failed. 3. Asia is currently stabilizing above its own reference high, inside the same parent boundary. 4. The 120 moving average is the structural anchor. Location around it helps classify supported rotations versus fragile rebounds. 5. Bollinger behavior is containment unless price can hold outside the envelope for more than a brief spike. 6. RSI helps you see whether pressure is persisting or fading back to neutral during boundary tests. Final restatement, so this is clear. This is a structure explanation, not an outcome call. The market is in balance with active testing. Acceptance is the filter. Until acceptance appears beyond the parent range, the most consistent interpretation is rotation inside containment. Structure decides first. Price follows later.